In this video, I'm going to have a look at how to multiply brackets, kind of thing you can see on the screen there. I'm going to show you two different ways of doing this, some examples, and then we're going to have a quick look at why we do it at all. So the first thing here, let's have a look at these brackets. X plus 2 is all one thing, and that's being multiplied by x minus 3. That's all one thing. Now, the first method involves leaving it written in one line, like this, and we multiply every element of the first bracket, which contains two elements, the first one being x and the second one being 2. They're both positive. We multiply every one of those times everything in the second bracket, and there are two elements in the second bracket. The first element is a x, which is positive, and the second element is a 3, which happens to be negative. So remember, anything that isn't explicitly negative, like this x here, is not explicitly negative, but it doesn't have a plus sign either. But in spite of that, it is positive. That 2 is explicitly positive, that x happens to be positive because it's not negative. So everything in the first bracket times everything in the second bracket. And what we can do is put a line up here to show which one we're doing. So the first thing I'm going to do is this x here times that x there. And x times x gives x squared. Then this x has got to multiply the other things in this bracket, which leaves us with the minus 3. So we'll put a line up here for that. That's the one I'm doing now. X times minus 3. That gives us minus 3x. So we write that in. And I've multiplied this x here now times everything in the second bracket. So I move on to the next element in the first bracket, which is the 2. And I do the 2 times every element in the second bracket. So we do 2 times x, positive 2, that gives plus 2x. And finally, there's only one thing left to do. We do the next element in the second bracket being multiplied by the 2. 2 times minus 3 gives minus 6. And that is a correct answer, but what we can do is we can just tidy it up a little bit, because I've got two terms with just x in here. I've only got one term with x squared, and I've got one term that doesn't have an x in. I can't really do much with those. There's nothing I can add to x squared, like another term with x squared. But minus 3x plus 2x leaves us with minus 1x. And when we write that, it's just minus x. We don't bother writing the 1. So that's minus x. And then the minus 6, there's nothing we can do about that. And that is the answer to this multiplication here. The second method involves writing out the brackets in a grid. And so let's set up our grid. We need 2 elements along the top. And let me write those in. So I'm going to do, just to show it doesn't make any difference, I'm going to write the x minus 3 along the top. That's the x minus 3 there. So just for what it's worth, I'll do that in the green colour. First element, which is positive, it doesn't have a minus, but the 3 has an attached minus, so that's got to be in there as well. And then down the side, I'm going to write the other element or the other bracket. I need to make this a little bit longer to put the other bracket contents down the side. There's our grid. So the other one was x plus 2. So let's just put that in, x and 2. It's positive. I don't really need to write the 2 in, the positive in, because it hasn't got a negative, so it must be positive. So what you'll see is we have a grid column for every element in one bracket and a grid row for every element in the other bracket. And that naturally leaves us with, we've got 2 elements here, 2 elements there. We've got 4 squares in the middle, and it allows us to do multiplication in the same way as we did when we did the lines over the top, but we don't need to do the lines. We've just got a cell in our grid for every element in one bracket times every element in the other. So let's go ahead with this. The first one, this one, has an x at the top and an x at the side, so we multiply those together and that gives us x squared. This cell has a minus 3 at the top and an x at the side, so that's minus 3x. This cell has an x at the top, a 2 at the side, so that's 2x, and of course that's a positive answer, simply because it's not negative. And this cell here has a minus 3 at the top and a 2 at the side, so that's minus 6. And now what we do is we go through and extract the contents of the cells and we write them out at the side. We've got x squared, that comes from there, minus 3x, that comes from there, plus 2x from there, so let's write that in, and minus 6 from there. And what you'll see is this line here is exactly the same as that line there. So if I simplified that, which I won't bother doing because we're going to get the same answer as before. So that is the grid method. It means you've got to write it out differently, but you don't need to write this one out differently, but you do need to put these lines in, which can make it rather confusing. Another example here, a bit more complicated this time, and we've got 3 elements in each bracket, a positive 2x squared, a positive 7x, a negative 9, a negative x squared in the second bracket, with a positive 4x and a positive 2. So using the first method with the lines on the top, it's just everything in this bracket times everything in that bracket. That's always the case. So we'll start with the 2x squared and we'll multiply that by the first element of the second bracket, which is minus x squared. Going to need a bit more room here. 2x squared times minus x squared gives us minus 2, and an x squared times an x squared gives us an x to the power of 4. So that's done that. I'm going to put the lines in, but you'll see it can get quite messy. Next one, I'm going to do the 2x squared times the plus 4x. 2 times 4 is 8, or the answer is going to be positive overall. There are no negatives in this multiplication, it's part of it. So 2 times 4 gives us 8. X squared times x gives us x cubed. And then we have the last one here. 2x squared times plus 2 gives us plus 4, and it's x squared. Next, we do as we've done the first element times everything in the second, so we move on and do the second element in the first bracket times everything in the second. So this is the first one. 7x times minus x squared, that'll give us minus 7x cubed. X times x squared is x cubed. Now we do this 7x times the second element. 7x times 4x, 7 4s are 28, it's all positive, plus 28. X times x is x squared. And then we do 7x times plus 2. 2 7s are 14. And x times, well, there isn't anything, so it's just x. Now, it's getting very messy on the top, so what I'm going to do is do the next one underneath. So let me move all these out of the way a bit. Give me a bit of room for that. That should be enough. And so it's the last element of the first bracket, this minus 9 times the first element of the second bracket. So minus times a minus is going to give us a plus. 9 times x squared gives us 9x squared. Then we've got minus 9 times plus 4x. So 9 4s are 36, and it's all going to be negative. And there was an x at the end of the 4, it was 4x, so it's x. And lastly, minus 9 times plus 2. So that's going to give us a negative answer, and 2 9s are 18. So that is a valid answer for that multiplication. What we can do is we can go through and tidy up a bit, because you can see we've got common terms. We've got 8x cubed here, we've got another minus 7x cubed, and we've got multiple terms with x squared in and multiple terms with x. So let's go through and quickly tidy those up. There's only one term with x to the power of 4, so we have to leave that as it is. Minus 2x to the power of 4. Now I like to put a little dot under these when I've dealt with them and moved them into this new line, to make sure I don't forget any or miss any. So minus 2x to the fourth is done. I'll put a dot under it. Let's do the x cubes next. So we've got two terms with x cubed. We've got this one here, which is plus 8. So let's put a dot under that. And we've got this minus 7x cubed. So let's put a little dot under that. And that's 8 minus 7 is just 1x cubed. So we don't bother writing the 1, it's x cubed. And because we've got more 8s than 7s, well, we're taking positive 8, take away 7 leaves us a positive. So that's a plus sign there. So that's dealt with these two. Move on to the x squareds. Now we've got 3 of these. We've got plus 4 here, and we've got 28 here. So 28 add 4 is 32. And then we've got plus 9 here. And 32 plus 9 is 41. It's all positive, so plus 41x squared. So moving along, the next thing we have is the terms with just x in, and there are 2 of them. we've got the 14x here and the 36 minus 36x here. So if we do those, let's do this one first. Plus 14x minus 36x. And that's going to give us a minus answer. And it's going to be 22 minus 22x. Okay, so remember, if we're looking at something like a number line, let's just quickly look at this. We've got 0 there. This 14x goes in the positive direction up 14. So we go plus 14 spaces. Then this minus 36x takes us from here down 36 in the minus direction, which is down there, minus 36. And the overall net result is to this point is, let me put the minus direction there, that is minus 22. So you can sort that out, have a go at that if you're not entirely clear on why that is. So that's dealt with everything. Everything's got a dot under it except for this minus 18, and we haven't got any other terms that don't have x, so we just write that down, minus 18x, sorry, not x. That's not right at all. We get rid of that. And that is the answer to this bracket multiplication. I've written out the grid for this multiplication we've just done. I've put the first bracket along the top, and I've put the second bracket down the side. It doesn't really matter if you leave out the pluses here. For example, instead of writing plus 7x, I could have written just 7x, and it would be deemed as being positive just because it's not negative. But it's very important to copy the negatives in where you see them. So here I've got a minus 9. I've written the negative in here. And here, this minus x squared has come from that minus. That is a negative x squared. I've got to write the minus in. Otherwise, I'll be multiplying everything by a positive x squared, and that will give me a different answer, obviously. So 3 elements in the first bracket, 3 elements in the second bracket. That gives me 9 cells to fill in. So all we've got to do is go across and fill in the 9 cells. First one, 2x squared times minus x squared gives me minus 2x to the 4. This cell here is plus 7x. Well, it doesn't matter what order we do these in. Let's just break it up and do something a little bit different. Let's do this plus 2 times this minus 9. So I'm working in this cell. A plus times a minus gives me a minus. 2 times 9 is 18. Let's do this cell. Plus 2 times plus 7x is plus 14x. Again, I don't have to write the plus in really, but I've done it. 2x squared times plus 2 is, I won't write a sign in here, I'll just go with 4x squared. Plus, let's do this cell, plus 4x times minus 9 is minus 36x. Plus, do this cell, plus 7x at the top, plus 4x at the side is 28. It's positive because it's not negative. X squared. 2 times 4 is 8. X times x squared is x cubed. So that's that one. And just finishing off these, this cell, plus 7 at the top times minus at the bottom gives me minus 7. This is really minus 1 lot of x squared, so it's 1 plus 7 times minus 1 is minus 7. And then we've got an x at the top, x squared here, x cubed. And the last cell is minus 9 times minus x squared, which gives plus 9x squared. And if we compare what we've got in these 9 terms in the cell, we can see that we've got exactly the same terms as we had before up here. Oh, I didn't put a dot under my 18, you see, that's very naughty. There we are, minus 18. So let's just check that off. We've got minus 2x to the fourth, and that appears here. Good. We've got plus 8x cubed, and that appears here. Plus 4x squared, and that's there, positive because it's not negative. 7x cubed negative, that's there. 28x squared is there. 14x is here. And then we had the 9x squared, and that's there. 36x negative is there. And lastly, the minus 18 is there. So it gives you the same answer. And if we'd written these out exactly the same as this, or in a different order, it doesn't really matter, we would have simplified it to get this answer here. But I'm not going to do that because you've already seen me do it for this. Doing it in the grid with lots of elements, it looks a bit cleaner than all these lines over the top. And that can be a little bit confusing, especially if you don't write the lines clearly. So whichever way you use, it's up to you. It gives the same result. My suggestion would be, if you've got two elements, use the lines over the top and over the bottom because that's fairly tidy. If any of your brackets, or if both of your brackets have 3 elements or more, you might prefer the grid method. That might be a little easier. Now, let's have a little look about why we do it this way at all. And we're not going to use x's, we're just going to use numbers. So let's take a multiplication like 8 times 11. You can do that in your head. The answer is 88. What happens if we write this 8? Instead of writing it as one number, let's write it as 2 numbers. Let's write it as 5 plus 3. And we'll put it in a bracket because we know it's one thing, being the number 8. And we'll multiply that times 11. Now, if we just do 5 times 11, this 5 multiplied by the 11, we get 55. And that has to equal 88, but clearly 55 doesn't equal 88. We know the true answer is 88 because we got that up here. So what's gone wrong? Well, if you think about it, when we say 8 times 11, what we're really saying is let's have 8 lots of 11. So there's 1, 2, I'm going to add these up in a minute, that's why I'm doing them underneath each other. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we add all those up and we get 88. When I only do 5 lots of 11, I'm only bothering about these first 5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, down to there. So that's 5 times 11. And I'm completely ignoring these remaining 3 times 11. So I can't just multiply the 5 times 11. I've got to do the 3 times 11 as well. And that, of course, is 33. So we can imagine we put the lines in here like we did before, 5 times 11 and 3 times 11. I've got to add that. They're all positive, so that's 33. They don't have to be positive. Let's do something with a negative in it. We'll stick with 8 times 11. So 5 plus 3. Now I'm looking for some numbers, 2 numbers that I can get to equal 11. And I'm going to go with 13 minus 2. So 5 plus 3 gives us our 8, and 13 minus 2 gives us our 11. I could have used 7 plus 4 or something, but I thought it'd be nice to have something with a minus sign in it. So what we're saying here is we know this answer has got to equal 88, because after all, 5 plus 3 is 8, and that's being multiplied by something in this bracket that equals 11. And 8 times 11 is 88, so this has got to be true. So we know 5 lots of this bracket, which is really 11, gives us 55. 3 times this bracket, which is really 11, gives us 33. So how can we get that? So if we do 5 times 13, that gives us 65. 5 times minus 2 gives us minus 10. 3 times 13 gives us plus 39. And 3 times minus 2 gives us minus 6. And if we add these up, we've got, let's do the adding first. Do that over here. 65 plus 39. 9 and 5 is 14. Put down the 4, carry 1. 6 and 3 and 1 is 10. 0, carry 1, 104. Now, I think the minuses we can probably do in our head from this. So let's take away 10. 104 take away 10 is going to leave 94. And then we've got the minus 6 here to deal with. So if we take away 6, minus 6 leaves us 88, which is the correct answer. So we can't ignore any of the elements in either bracket. It's got to be everything times everything else. Otherwise, we wouldn't be multiplying by 11. So if we ignored this minus 2, for example, which multiplied the 3, and it multiplied the 5 in the first bracket, if we ignored that, we wouldn't have the terms with minus 2 in it, which were this minus 10 and the minus 2 times 3, which gave us minus 6. So we wouldn't have these two terms. We know that with the terms it equals 88. If we hadn't subtracted the 10 and the 6, we would have got this number here, 104. That would be wrong. So I hope that just gives you a little bit of an added interest in a way of thinking about why it's everything in the first bracket times everything in the second bracket. Yeah, so that's all. Goodbye.